Welcome to The Victory Show.
Hey, Victors. Welcome to this episode of The Victory Show. If this is the first time you're joining us, I'm Travis Cody, best-selling author of 16 books and the creator of Bestseller by Design. I've had the privilege of helping hundreds of business consultants, founders, and entrepreneurs write and publish their own best-selling books as well. And along that journey, discovered a really fascinating pattern. A lot of businesses hit a revenue plateau, usually around $1 million a year, and they struggle to break through it. So on this show, I sit down with some of the world's most successful founders, CEOs, leaders, and business owners to uncover the strategies they use to overcome those plateaus and scale their business to new heights so you can do the same. So get ready for some deep insights, actionable takeaways that you can implement in your life and business starting now. Today's guest sits right at the intersection of data, labor markets, and the future of work. Ben Zweig is the CEO of Revelyo Labs, a workforce intelligence company that's transforming how businesses and investors understand talent and human capital. By unifying and enriching massive public employment databases, Revelyo Labs is building a universal HR database with a simple but powerful mission: to make labor markets more sophisticated and more transparent. And in addition to leading Revelyo, Ben teaches data science and the future of work at NYU Stern, sharing his expertise on data and AI and how that's reshaping careers and industries. Now, before founding Revelyo, he managed workforce analytics projects at IBM's Chief Analytics Office and worked as a data scientist at an emerging markets hedge fund. With a PhD in economics and research in occupational transformation and social mobility, Ben brings deep insight to one of the most urgent conversations of our time: how we hire, work, and grow in a rapidly evolving economy. Ben, thank you so much for being here. How timely is our conversation?
Oh my gosh, very. Yeah, and thanks again for having me. This is quite the intro.
Thanks. For people that are not aware of why what you built is so necessary, walk through some of the struggles that companies and corporations are having in terms of how it comes to employment data and why Revelyo is solving that problem.
Yeah. I mean, even just to take a step back, just if you think about the economy and how it breaks down based on its resources, the economy is essentially made up of labor and capital. And if you break that out, about 2/3 of economic output is attributable to labor, about 1/3 to capital. And there is a science for allocating capital, the field of finance, and finance is super sophisticated. We've all heard of it and participated in it, and we know that that's like a huge part of our economy is allocating capital scientifically in a sophisticated way. And there's a whole world that supports that. We have accountants, which exist essentially to like categorize things related to capital. And when it comes to labor markets, which is twice as big as capital, we don't have anything close to that. I mean, we don't allocate labor efficiently, and this is our time. This is how we spend our lives. I mean, what could be more important than that? And how do people choose their careers? I don't know, they ask their uncle or something, or like, their friends' parents. And, it's so network driven. It's so not rigorous. There's no research. There's no anything. Army of, accountant type people that help us categorize labor and how we should think about how labor markets are organized. So, job seekers are totally in the dark. And companies also, they struggle to find the people they need or even define their roles or their requirements that they need to grow the business. It's very, very reactive. All of this is happening in the dark. So that's kind of why we are trying to reveal what's happening and bring more clarity to these markets.
I love it. So when you talk about being transparent for the labor market themselves, not the corporations, but people in the labor market working for jobs, how does that transparency help them?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is they make more informed choices. So one way to think about this is that, when someone like I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she kind of knows what jobs are. She's like, oh, well, mommy's a feelings doctor. And, there's like a teacher and like a cook and like a singer, like she has a very surface level understanding of like what jobs are even out there in the world. And then as you go up to high school and even college, like you learn about other things, you're like, oh, well, now I know about lawyers and, you know, um, and like, I've kind of heard of marketing, but don't really know what it is. Like, our understanding of the occupational landscape is still pretty limited. And then as you get out into the workforce, you get an understanding of like a pocket of that. and you get more knowledge of like what is a product manager and what do they do? That's not something we learn about in high school and college. And you get more visibility into this landscape that you've only had a very narrow view of. So I think just giving people more information to do research about like what is this job that you might have heard of or might not have? What does it do? Does it match your interests? Like or your skills? Like, what does the day to day look like? Do people like it? Do they stay for a long time? What does that lead to? How will this help you pursue your goals? And I mean that information is all out there. Like there's data about that. It's just not organized.
Yeah. It's fascinating because there's been industries where I've been and where I've worked in 8 or 9 years, and then you meet somebody and they tell you what they do in that industry, and it's like, wait, you do what? Like I didn't even know that, and like I've been in that industry for 8 years, and they're doing this thing, and I'm going, that sounds way more interesting than what I've been doing for 8 years, right? So what I love about this is the fact that as we're moving forward with new generations coming into the workforce, like it sounds like this data really opens up the opportunities for people to find not just jobs that are a good match for their skill set, but that they would find fairly fulfilling versus I'm becoming an accountant because, I'm like one of my friends, he's like, I'm from India, and from India, you got three choices. It's accounting, attorney, or a doctor. Like all you have to do. Why? Because that's what the culture says you do, right? And then they get in it and they're miserable, right? So we're talking about now being able to come in to find a job that you're actually good at and you actually enjoy. So that's remarkable. So
there's a lot out there. I mean, I think, every individual wants to find the career, that maximizes their own objectives. And also every company is also struggling to find the people they need. So there's, there's a lot of need on both the supply and the demand side of the market, and that matching process has to happen somehow. And now it happens from like gut feel and no data, so facilitating that match just makes everybody better off.
Yeah, I love it. So let's take a step back then, because you were working in data with IBM, and obviously you're exposed to a company scale that most people can't fathom.
Yeah.
So what was it in that time with IBM that opened your eyes to this need for data, and was there a spark that you went, oh my gosh, like somebody needs to solve this problem?
Yeah. So when I started day one, I met with the VP of the group and found out like my teammates and all that. And what he said, and I was working on the workforce analytics team. We had this mandate to optimize the IBM workforce, which was 400,000 people, So that's like a lot of people.
Oh man.
The way he said it, he was like, 75% of IBM's expenses are people, and it is the least understood part of the business.
Wow.
And I just heard that and I was like, holy shit, like this is really important. Like what could, this is so underserved. And, I'm like here to do important work. It was like really motivating. And, we worked on tons of projects related to, optimizing the IBM workforce, reskilling and retention and promotion strategy and site selection and like sourcing talent, all these kind of cool projects. There was also something that I got discouraged by, and that was really that we analyzed IBM data all day, but we had no idea what was happening outside the four walls of the company. And coming from economics, we have like a framing of what strategy is, and if you could distill strategy into one word, it's differentiation. Like that is, strategy on one foot is about understanding how you're differentiated. And we had no clue how we were differentiated, and no company did. IBM, sure. I think at the time was like at the cutting edge of people analytics and workforce data, but never in a million years did we think we could get access to like the HR database at Oracle or Accenture or something. It was hard enough to get data internally. So then I was thinking like this is, and meanwhile at the same time, I was kind of getting involved in this people analytics community in New York, and it's just like a really wonderful community. They have events, and it's just a really nice network. But in those conversations, I was starting to see that the projects I was working on, other companies were also working on them and like doing it more or less the same way. And I was just like, look at all these smart, motivated people doing basically the same work. Like, what a waste of talent. And I thought, how could this be centralized? Like, wouldn't it be nice if there were kind of one, entity just front loading all this effort, doing all the mappings and hard work, to get it to make sense, and kind of came across this idea that like there's a lot of data in the public domain that could be used. So let's say you are an employee at a company, you are a record in their HR database. It says your title, your start date, your reporting structure, all this stuff. A lot of that information is also mirrored on your resume or your LinkedIn profile or something like that. So, and that's accessible. That's in the public domain. So if we could take, the full universe of employment data that is in the public domain, we can sort of reconstruct or at least approximate, the HR database for every single company, regardless of whether or not we have an affiliation to it. So that idea just seemed so powerful, and there were tons of problems. I mean, it's like a massive amount of data. It's like a total mess. Like, it's free text, and, it was just like a lot of hard problems to work on. But, that kind of got exciting. And also, in 2017, when we were conceiving of this, that was actually just 3 years after the first like large language model was created. So that was called Word2Vec. That paper came out in 2014. And we started experimenting with like using what was the cutting edge large language models at the time to apply them to the free text of resume and profile data and job posting data, which is of course, very messy, but these models were really, really well suited to kind of, create a structure around, create taxonomies and job architecture around this messy employment data. And when that started working well, I was like, okay, this is going to be something. I don't know who we're going to sell to. I don't know how we're going to make money, but I got to quit my job. That was that.
Here you're working with, what a lot of people have considered the golden ticket for a job, working for IBM, right? I mean, that's a big company, perceived security there. So to leave that was a pretty big leap. But what I'm loving about this is you're discovering, in the early 2000s, there was the phrase that was coined about, we're in the information age, right? And by 2017, we're realizing that created a new problem, which was the information overload phase, right? Where it's like information now, there's just so much hitting at us. It's like we just can't process it all. Your approach to launching your startup was pretty, I thought pretty creative and unique. So let's talk about your first year. It was you, and then you had hired four local interns.
Yeah, 4 interns. I had gone to high school with someone who worked as like the placements officer at the Masters of Data Science at Columbia University. I just asked her like, hey, who's good, who's underrated, and like also, available. She hooked me up with some people, and they were amazing. I mean, they were great. And yeah, basically, sat down with the four of them every morning and started, working on problems, hands on keyboards,
So how long did you have them? Just 3-4 months?
Yeah. I mean, actually, two of them were able to stay beyond that into the semester. But it was, after that, we had to find, other people. And we're always kind of like on this like intern treadmill.
Which creates its own challenges.
Yeah, really for a long time. I mean, we didn't really get any hires until sort of the tail end of 2019. And we started kind of mid 2018. So like a good year and a half.
Year and a half before your first official hire.
Yeah, and then we had, and then there were three of us for like, I don't know, like 7-8 months. And then there were like, five of us for like the next, 6 months. So we were like really small for a long time. Yeah,
so and I love that, right? I think that's the pretty typical journey for a lot of founders. You bootstrap as much as you can. So let's talk about, once you hit your first 10 full-time employees and you're starting to scale, because I know you're way beyond that now. Let's talk about, for you as a founder, as a data scientist, kind of working on this thing. Basically, you've got interns, but you're kind of in charge. Like,
I also had a co-founder, by the way, who wasn't ready to quit his job when I was. So like he joined basically kind of a year and a half in, or
then it started to shift.
Yeah.
So then how did you, for you, like I'm more interested in is like, because being data scientists, being like boots on the ground working, eventually you're getting to a point where now you're managing a team and you've got to do more owner stuff versus boots on the ground stuff. How did you personally deal with that transition?
Yeah, I think for us, like, I had to like be involved in the technical side of it.
Sure.
And that's where I like get energized also. Like I really like, sitting and writing code and stuff like that. But but also we needed to do sales and, look for maybe raising money or something, so we were doing this, the commercial side of things also needed to be served. And I just kind of, had come to the realization that like I, I could hire, I feel very comfortable hiring strong data scientists. Like I know who's good. I know how to like source them. I don't feel comfortable hiring good salespeople.
Hmm.
And that's still the case. But I think I just, it was a better use of my time, hiring data scientists and engineers and working on the commercial side of the business. And so I think I just needed to kind of manage the data science and data engineering teams.
Was it hard for you to let go of being like kind of in there writing the code and realizing like, ah, for right now, I've got to hire other people to do that?
Yeah, it was kind of hard to let go. Yeah, I mean, even still, meet with these teams and I'm like, oh man, I wish I were like in this. I wish I were like building this in a different way or something. I mean, they're amazing. Like they're much
Sure. No.
than I am at this. But yeah, I still kind of feel like I like, getting my hands dirty. And, one thing we've instituted as a company, which I think is like a really nice thing that we do. We have what we call like a project week
Mhm.
where, every week a different person kind of takes off the week and just works on whatever they think is cool and interesting.
Smart. That's great.
Yeah, so people love it. I mean, it's like, it's a popular thing. That is also like just a really nice thing that sort of scratches the itch.
I love it. So for you as a CEO, then, what have been the challenges? Again, stepping away from scientists and stepping away from being professor into CEO. Sounds like you've crossed that chasm and you're very successful with that. So, can we talk a little bit about the challenges you went through to get to that point?
It was, I mean, there's a lot of chaos and just like things go kind of, things are messy, even when they seem like they shouldn't be. So I think I'd sort of, you know, gotten much more aware of like what can go wrong in an engineering pipeline. And at least for the beginning, we were promising something that was pretty ambitious. We were telling clients you can get visibility into companies that you don't have an affiliation to, and you can understand what's going on with their workforce. And that's a big statement. And I
Yeah,
think people were enamored by the possibility of that. So I think getting interest wasn't the problem for us. The problem was not embarrassing ourselves when we showed them the data. So the first like few years, we were really, in this like embarrassment minimization paradigm. We really felt like we got to put something in front of them and like it's got to work. If we could just get it to like be functional and work and not have problems, then like we are ahead of the game. I mean, now we've sort of crossed that, and now
sure.
now we've gotten like really stable. I mean, there's still problems that pop up,
Yeah.
but now we're more in the paradigm where we're like trying to produce more cool things, and we've sort of escaped this problem where it's just like issues that landmines that we have to like get around. But for a while, I was just like, damn, this stuff is like really hard. Like we are solving really hard problems. And yeah, I was just like, I don't even know if this is possible. Like I think when I started, I kind of had two concerns. One, is it possible to do what we're doing? And another, is it defensible? Like could anyone do this? And I was very concerned about defensibility, about competition. And the more time I spend in it, I'm just like, like I'm not at all concerned about competition. Like there's so many barriers to getting into this, but I'm really concerned about whether it's possible to do it well at all. It's just like staying at the frontier of technology and engineering has been really important for us.
That's fantastic. So now you're where you're at. You've got, a little bit of stability, your model state, you're harnessing all this data. What does the next 3 to 5 years look like, not just for Revelyo Labs, but in terms of what your vision is for how industry is going to actually use this data?
Yeah, yeah. So it's big. I mean, I think just about where we're at, we have 67 people right now, and the vast majority are engineers or data scientists or economists. We are very much an engineering culture, and we don't really have a go-to-market function. We don't really have sales, marketing. I mean, we have a little bit, but it's
Sure.
it's fragmented. There's no like we don't have account management. We don't have partner channel strategy. We don't have SDRs and BDRs or an outbound motion. Like there's so much that we just don't do. And I think, in some way, like that's reflective of how I like to think about the world. I'd like to think, okay, the best product wins, and like, and the selling it, will all kind of wash away. And the best way to make a lot of money is to deserve a lot of money from having a good product. And I think I'm sort of getting, sort of, shifting a little bit to thinking, oh, actually, it is really important to like have a strong presence, be in a lot of markets, like engage with communities, get to know how they think and talk to them. And so I think we're putting a lot more effort into like rebalancing our team toward, just like having more of a commercial presence.
Sure. Yeah, the marketing awareness is a big deal.
Totally. Yeah. And we've been, not doing much of that. And in terms of like what we can enable, I mean, I think there's a few ways to think about, how to build a company. I think the startup orthodoxy really goes like this. It says, identify a customer need and just like build whatever you have to build to like solve that need and solve their problem and be the painkiller that like addresses a client's issue, make them super happy, and bada bing, bada boom. This is like the lean startup methodology. And I think we are not that kind of company. And I think we are a little bit more heterodox in a way where instead of identifying on the need, we are building this core asset. So we are building something that we think is extendable to a variety of different needs. So now we have this like really nice, neat, curated workforce data that can like be used for all sorts of things. It can be used for evaluating companies. It can be used for compensation benchmarking or retention analysis or whatever, a whole bunch of things. But we've got this core technology at the center of it that is like really our main asset. And I think the world we want to see with that is a world where this data just becomes ubiquitous across a variety of different workflows. So the analogy I like to use is something like a Bloomberg terminal. Like in capital markets, everyone's got their day job and their Bloomberg terminal right next to them, which is just like all the data that they'd possibly ever need to do what they need to do in their day job. And I think we need a Reveillyo Labs terminal for every HR professional and anyone analyzing people to just have right next to them, to be their companion, to just have the data they need in whatever their workflow is. So that's the vision we're trying to build toward. I don't know if we're going to get there in 3 to 5 years, but I hope we get there, in our lifetimes.
I love it. So somebody's listening to this episode or reading this chapter in the book. They're like, man, this sounds amazing. Like first and foremost, who's sort of like a great fit for Revelyo Labs and the data that you harness? Like, is there a size of company that's like the guys just knock it out of the park for?
Not really size of company. I mean, we serve like a variety of different markets. So one's like we sell a lot to hedge funds because hedge funds are in the business of evaluating companies that they're not affiliated with, and we are giving them a deep view into that. So that's one market for us. Academic researchers is another market, but actually the biggest and fastest growing is really corporate HR. And within corporate HR, there's a whole variety of different end users. So there's talent intelligence, which is really interesting. There's people analytics, strategic workforce planning, compensation benchmarking, a whole bunch of different groups. It's the problem they have is really that they need to organize their workforce. They need to have a good understanding of their occupations, their skills, their work activities, and how to do kind of organizational design. And it touches everything. So I think it's a nice fit for us because we're so focused on that foundational unification and language, and that's really the part of HR that focuses on like the data foundation.
I love it.
Yeah.
So how does someone find Revelyo Labs and connect?
Our website, revelyolabs.com, LinkedIn for sure. I mean, that's where we have the biggest presence. I'm active on LinkedIn, and we have a popular newsletter.
And you were saying earlier, you're working on a book. By the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be well down the pipeline. What's your book? What's the title, and what are people going to get out of it?
Yeah, it's about job architecture. So this is
there you go.
Yeah, so the title is Job Architecture, Building a Language for Workforce Intelligence. It's coming out with Wiley. So this book is really about how to think about taxonomies related to jobs, occupation, skills, and activities. How to think about taxonomy, why it's really important. Like I mentioned before, it touches everything. And if you have good taxonomies, you can do good work. And if you have bad taxonomies, which most organizations do, your work output will be bad. So, I think at the end of the day, so much of our output and so much of our analysis rests on how people are organized. And into buckets, into categories. And, taxonomies really are at the root of any science. And, if we want labor markets to be scientific, we need good taxonomies.
I love it. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so fun.